All right, diving in. This time, we're going to tackle settling with Jesus.
Ooh, I like that.
Not just, saying we believe, but actually like building a life around it.
Yeah.
So we're looking at this sermon as our source material, and
Right.
it brings up some really interesting stuff about like what it means to be a Christian today, how church attendance has changed so much,
Yeah.
and even some personal stories that kind of make you think about the ups and downs of really committing to a life of faith.
It is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's almost like a paradox, what we're seeing today.
Okay.
You've got, on the one hand, this decline in people actually going to church every week.
Right.
I mean, it's down to 20% now from like 42% a couple decades ago.
Wow, that's huge.
It is.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you see, especially among younger generations, this desire
Okay.
for a real sense of community
Mhm.
and some kind of spiritual grounding.
So fewer people in the pews, but more people looking for what church is supposed to be about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the paradox. Makes you think, right?
It does. So where do we even start untangling this whole thing?
Well, the sermon starts off with some pretty hard-hitting statistics.
Uh-oh.
Get this, 3,500 people are leaving churches every single day.
Every day.
Every single day.
That's like over 1 million people a year just walking away.
Yeah, that's a mass exodus.
Wow.
And here's another interesting tidbit. While Christian churches are seeing this decline,
Okay.
attendance at Jewish and Muslim services is actually on the rise.
Really? That's interesting.
Right. So it really begs the question, why are people leaving Christianity in such numbers?
If people are searching for meaning and connection, like you were saying, why aren't they finding it in church?
Well, the sermon points to a couple of big ideas that have shaped our thinking,
Okay.
Modernism and postmodernism.
Big words.
I know, right? But stick with me.
I'm listening.
These philosophies, they've got their good points,
Sure.
but they often emphasize science and individual freedom over traditional faith.
So basically, we're encouraged to question everything and rely on ourselves instead of like a higher power.
You got it.
I can see how that might clash with, traditional religious beliefs.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
See, modernism, it's all about reason
Okay.
and proof.
Mhm.
It wants us to test everything, right?
Yeah.
Which can lead to some skepticism about religious teachings that are based on faith and, well, things we can't necessarily prove scientifically.
Right.
And then postmodernism goes a step further.
Oh, boy.
It questions the whole idea of there being one objective truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about individual interpretation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it celebrates personal experience, which makes it harder for people to connect with the shared stories and traditions of organized religion.
It's like we're so focused on like figuring things out for ourselves
Yeah.
that we're losing sight of the good things about being part of something bigger.
You said it. That's the disconnect.
Yeah.
People might still believe in God, but they hesitate to actually join a church community.
Yeah.
The sermon actually shares a few stories about people who say they believe, but then never actually show up for services.
Interesting.
It's almost as if they acknowledge there's something bigger out there,
Right.
but they're not ready to, sign up for the whole organized religion thing.
I think I've met people like that.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Yeah.
spiritual, but not necessarily religious, right?
Exactly. But the sermon points out a key reason why some people feel this way.
Okay, what is it?
They've been hurt,
Oh.
let down, even disillusioned by their experiences with churches in the past.
Oh, yeah.
They might have encountered judgment
Right.
or hypocrisy or just a lack of genuineness.
Yeah. So it's not that they're rejecting God, but maybe the people and institutions that are supposed to represent him.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, I believe, but I don't trust the messengers.
That's a good way to put it.
So how does this idea of settling with Jesus fit into all of this? Right. It's clearly more than just showing up on Sundays.
Definitely.
The sermon talks about settling as really connecting with Christ,
Okay.
but doing it within a community of believers.
I see.
It's about taking ownership, putting down roots,
Mm.
kind of like that idea of settling in the promised land.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't just about finding a spot.
Right.
It was about making it home.
So are you saying it's about creating a spiritual home within a community?
Exactly. It's about going beyond just believing
Yeah.
and actually becoming part of a living, breathing community.
Like building a life where faith is the foundation and your fellow believers are like the support beams?
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And as we'll see, this commitment to community has some incredible benefits, not just for individuals, but for the whole group.
Okay. I am officially hooked.
Good.
What are these benefits? And how does the early church give us a model for this kind of deep communal living?
Well, let's take a trip back in time to the book of Acts.
Ooh, a time machine.
That's where we see the early church in action.
This is where it gets interesting.
Let's go see what those first followers of Jesus were all about.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going back to the very beginning, right?
We are. Talking about those first Christians.
All right, after Jesus. Yeah.
What made their community so different, so powerful?
Yeah, what was their secret sauce?
Well, the book of Acts gives us a little peek into their lives.
Oh, okay.
And it's pretty amazing, you know?
All right, I'm ready.
Remember Pentecost?
Yeah, wasn't that like the big kickoff for the church?
It was. The Holy Spirit shows up.
Right.
The disciples are suddenly empowered. They're speaking in other languages, spreading the good news.
To a huge crowd of people from all over.
Exactly. Talk about a launch party.
3,000 people baptized that day, if I remember correctly.
That's what the book says.
Wow.
But the real story,
Yeah.
it's what happens after all that excitement dies down.
Okay.
These new believers, they didn't just go back to their normal lives.
They were changed, right?
Transformed.
Yeah.
By their encounter with Jesus.
Yeah.
And they committed to a whole new way of living.
So it was more than just believing what they heard.
Way more.
It's about putting it into practice together.
Exactly. Living it out in community.
That's cool.
Acts 2.42 describes it beautifully. You know,
Okay.
it says they devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings, to fellowship, to breaking bread together, to prayer.
It wasn't just about going to church once a week. It was about like making faith part of everything they did.
Weaving it into their lives. Exactly.
I love that.
They were there for each other.
Yeah.
Shared what they had, faced the good times and the bad together.
What a contrast to that individualism we were talking about earlier. It was all about belonging.
Absolutely.
Being part of something bigger.
And you know what?
What?
That sense of belonging,
Yeah.
it had this ripple effect.
In what way?
Think about it.
Okay.
In a world where Christianity was brand new, right, often misunderstood, even dangerous, this radical commitment to community, it must have been incredibly attractive.
Like a beacon of hope?
Exactly. So their unity, their genuine care for each other, it became this powerful testimony.
A testament to the power of faith.
You got it. It wasn't just talk.
Right.
It was action.
Okay.
They lived out their beliefs.
How so?
Taking care of the sick, sharing their possessions, making sure everyone had what they needed.
No one was left behind.
Exactly. It was a living, breathing example of love in action.
That's beautiful.
And that's what drew people in.
Makes you wonder if some churches today are struggling because they've lost sight of that.
Lost sight of what?
That communal aspect of faith.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
The sermon really emphasizes that the early church grew because of their shared lives and their active participation.
It wasn't about fancy services or buildings.
No, not at all.
It was about the relationships.
The depth of their connections.
So it wasn't about getting more converts. It was about creating a culture.
What kind of culture?
Where people felt seen, loved, supported.
A place where they truly belonged.
Exactly.
And, you know, that sense of belonging, that being deeply rooted in a community, it has some incredible benefits.
Okay, like what? Spill the beans.
We're not just talking about spiritual growth here.
Okay.
We're talking real-world, tangible benefits.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, the sermon cites some fascinating research.
Oh, I love research.
From the Handbook of Religion and Health.
Never heard of it.
It's a big deal in this field.
Okay.
And it turns out that going to church regularly is linked to all sorts of positive outcomes.
Like what?
Lower rates of depression, substance abuse, even suicide.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is.
I mean, I knew there were social benefits to being part of a community.
Sure.
But I never really thought about the impact on mental and physical health.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
The research suggests that the support system you find in church, a sense of purpose, the healthy lifestyle choices, it all contributes to overall well-being.
Makes sense.
And there's more.
More good news.
Studies have shown a link between church attendance and better outcomes for cancer and heart patients, too.
So it's not just about living longer. It's about living better, healthier, fuller lives.
It really highlights how faith affects every part of us.
Yeah, the mind, body, spirit connection.
You got it. Settling with Jesus. It's not just about spiritual growth. It's about embracing a way of life
that can make us healthier in every way.
You said it. Physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Wow, this is quite the deep dive.
It is, isn't it?
We've gone from declining church attendance to the power of community, and now to these amazing health benefits.
It's all connected.
It seems like this settling thing is about way more than just being a churchgoer.
You're absolutely right.
It's about actively being part of a community of faith.
Yeah.
Living out your beliefs.
Putting them into action.
Supporting each other.
Extending that love and support to everyone around you.
Being the church, not just going to church, right?
Exactly. And that brings us back to that core Christian message.
Loving God, loving your neighbor.
The two great commandments.
And it seems like those two ideas are woven into this whole idea of settling with Jesus.
They're inseparable, really.
But how do we actually put that love into action?
Especially in a world that can feel so divided and selfish.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Well, the sermon tackles this head-on.
Okay.
With a rather poignant story about the pastor's encounter with some discarded luggage.
Discarded luggage?
I know, it sounds random.
Yeah, what does that have to do with loving your neighbor?
It's less about the luggage itself.
Okay.
And more about the attitude it reveals.
Okay.
A pastor describes finding this abandoned luggage and feeling frustrated.
Yeah, I can see that.
Annoyed, His first thought is just to get rid of it.
To just ignore it, yeah.
Exactly. And I think we can all relate to that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's easy to get caught up in our own little world and overlook the needs of others, especially when it's inconvenient. But then the pastor says he felt this conviction, like God was nudging him, asking,
what
if that was your luggage? Would you want someone to just toss it aside?
Whoa, that's powerful.
It is, isn't it?
It really makes you step outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And see things from someone else's perspective.
And that's what love is all about, right?
It's about choosing to see the needs of others.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's inconvenient.
Even when it challenges our comfort.
So it's not about grand gestures, necessarily. It's about those little everyday acts of kindness.
The small things we do.
That make a big difference.
Exactly. And to drive this point home,
the
sermon quotes a powerful passage from 1 John.
Is that the one about God is love?
That's the one.
Okay.
But it goes deeper than that.
How so?
It says true love.
Yeah.
It's not just a feeling.
Okay.
It's a choice.
A choice, yeah.
An action.
And it's how we really know God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can't say you love God.
Right.
And then turn around and treat other people badly. The passage actually says that anyone who claims to love God but hates their brother or sister is a liar.
Wow, that's intense.
It is. It challenges the idea that faith is just a personal thing.
Right, between you and God.
Yeah.
It's saying that how we treat others shows our true relationship with God.
Precisely. And the sermon ends with this beautiful statement from the pastor.
Oh, I love a good quote.
He says, "One of the reasons I love being here every Sunday is because I genuinely love y'all."
Oh, that's sweet.
He's talking about his congregation, of course.
Right.
But it points to something bigger.
About settling with Jesus.
Yeah. It's not just about finding your own spiritual home.
It's about being part of something bigger.
A community that reaches out and impacts the world.
Exactly. Which brings us back to that question the pastor posed.
No question.
If genuine Christian faith is all about love in action, how can you live out that love in your community?
It's a powerful question, isn't it?
It really is.
It makes us look at ourselves.
Our motivations.
How we interact with the world.
It challenges us to go beyond just believing.
And start actively loving and serving others.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what final thoughts or insights can we leave our listeners with?
Something to help them really grasp this whole settling with Jesus thing.
It feels like we've really gone deep on this one.
We have. So much to unpack.
Yeah, we started with that whole thing about people leaving churches, then we explored the power of community, right?
Right.
And now we've landed on this beautiful connection between settling with Jesus and actually showing love.
Yeah, it's all connected.
What a journey.
It really is. We dug into some surprising numbers. We wrestled with how modern thinking clashes with traditional faith. And we even uncovered some practical perks of living in a close-knit community.
And that story about the luggage. Wow.
Yeah.
It was such a good reminder that love isn't just something we talk about,
Right.
It's about what we actually do.
It's about action.
Yeah, especially when we're faced with those everyday annoyances.
It's easy to forget sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a powerful illustration.
It is.
It shows us that loving our neighbor isn't always about, big showy gestures.
Right.
It's about those small, consistent choices we make every day.
Yeah.
Choosing compassion over judgment, choosing understanding, even when it's hard.
It's about showing up, even when it's inconvenient.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize
What's that?
that settling with Jesus is not just about finding a spiritual home for yourself.
Okay.
It's about helping to build a community where love is the foundation.
I like that.
A place where people feel safe.
Yeah.
To be vulnerable, to grow, to share that love with others.
So how can our listeners, take this idea of settling with Jesus and actually make it real in their lives?
Right, because that's the big question, right?
Yeah, what does it actually look like?
Well, some folks might be plugged into a church community already.
Yeah.
Others might be exploring their faith in different ways. But the question for everyone, how can we deepen our commitment? Not just to believing,
right,
but to actively living out our faith in a way that touches the people around us.
So there's no one right answer.
Nope. Everyone's journey is different.
But the big takeaway here is that faith isn't meant to be a solo act.
Right. It's meant to be shared, expressed, in real ways, to be a source of strength for ourselves.
And for others.
Exactly. It's about creating that ripple effect.
A ripple effect of what?
Of love and grace,
That starts with us, spreads to our communities, ultimately changes the world.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected and that what we do, even the small things, they matter.
They have an impact.
So as you go about your week, dear listener.
Yes. Think about this.
Think about what settling with Jesus looks like for you.
Right now, in this season of your life.
What steps can you take?
To deepen your commitment.
Yeah.
Strengthen your connections.
To become a brighter light in the world around you.
And remember.
What's that?
It's not about being perfect.
No, not at all.
It's about progress.
One step at a time.
One act of love at a time.
Trusting that those small steps can lead to big changes.
Within ourselves.
And in our communities.
Until next time, deep divers.
Keep searching.
Keep asking those tough questions.
And keep loving fiercely.
See you on the next deep dive.
Thank you for tuning into this podcast episode presented by Selfless Church. We pray you have been blessed by the information shared during this podcast. If you would like to learn more about how to move forward in your journey with Christ, please visit www.selflesschurch.org/nextsteps. If this ministry is a blessing to you and you feel led to support this ministry, please visit www.selflesschurch.org/donate. Thank you for your support.